Hi everybody, welcome back. We're at Big City Studio and today I'm Planet 15. What do you think? Like it? I am going to talk to someone who I've known only a few years, but in those few years I've grown to really like him. Lucas, the Cliks, welcome.
Thank you.
How are you?
I'm well. How are you?
I'm just absolutely fabulous. I'm Planet 15. How could I not be fabulous? You know, I must tell you, the first time I'd ever heard of you was when I got the Moberg Cliks CD, which I played the hell out of on the radio because it was so good.
Why, thank you. Yeah, you were one of our first main supporters, and I totally appreciate that.
But now I have to ask you, what went on before that?
Oh, wow. So much. Years and years.
Had to be.
Yeah, I mean, I started the Cliks probably in about, I think, 2004. And when I started the Cliks, I was a girl. So
Yes.
I used to be a woman.
Yes.
And that was sort of, I think, the first step in my transition. I didn't really realize what I was doing, but I had been sort of a singer-songwriter type. And I was going by my name, and I sort of wanted the anonymity. So I created a band to sort of be behind so I didn't have to have that. And after I started the band, I'd say about 2 years in, I came to the realization that I was male, and this was something that I'd been struggling with. And it was right on the heels of that I started recording the album that you're talking about, which was Snake House. And I had met Moberg probably I'd say about a year before that. And when I sort of came to him and explained to him how I wanted to work with him, I told him my story, and he was just awesome. He was so supportive and thought it was great, and we just sort of took it from there.
Well, compliments to Mo. I know him very well, and you're right, he's a hell of a guy.
He's a great human being.
Now, let me understand the Cliks. Was that not an all-female? Were all women in it?
Well, yep, it used to be all female. So it was me, and the original lineup was a woman by the name of Esri and a drummer by the name of Heidi. And then, you know, things always change in indie bands because people can't afford to pay the rent and go on the road, so it keeps changing. And the second lineup, I ended up hiring Morgan Doctor, and I had a bass player by the name of Jordan. Those are the people who played on the Snake House album that you're talking about. And then after that, I added another guitar player, Nina Martinez, and then after that, the bass player quit, so we got Jen Benton. And so it was me, Morgan, Jen, and Nina for a while. That was pretty much the lineup until the album Dirty King.
And are you primarily performing as a solo artist now?
No, I perform as a band, but what I do is I hire just different players to play with me. I find it works much better for me as the kind of musician that I am, the kind of work that I do. I'm not the kind of artist that, you know, I don't like being on the road. I don't like touring. I don't like doing sort of like that regular, you know, make an album, tour an album, go broke, do it again cycle. I'm not into that. So I think what works for me is to have a bunch of people who I love playing with, and when something happens, I call on who's available, and we have a great time.
And now we come to the most recent album. I must tell you, I love both of them. I think my affection goes with the Moberg album first, though. But the second album, tell me about how you arrived at that point and how you chose the tunes.
Dirty King was a record that was made after being on the road for probably about 2.5, 3 years. And it was a really tumultuous time for me because I was out as a trans guy, but I wasn't on hormone therapy. Okay. So I appeared female to most people. And I started feeling this duality of people looking at me a certain way and who I really was. And that also connected with sort of how I was on the road. The road is like this beast, you know, and if you don't learn to tame it, it'll just take you over. And I think what happened with me was the road took me over, and it just turned me into a person that I didn't want to be. And then you come back home and you have to be this like normal human being, and you don't know how to be normal. And then you go back on the road and all you want to do is be home. So it sort of came from that sort of duality. And I started having problems with the band, and we started getting a little bit more famous. And with fame comes a lot of BS. And when I look back at it now, it was just like a bunch of young, like really confused people who didn't know what the hell they were doing, and that's sort of where all of that it came out of for that album. Yeah.
It is true that being on the road can be a very difficult.
Oh my
Very
God.
difficult.
I hate it.
It's extreme to the point where you land in a city or a town or a village and you have no idea where you are.
Absolutely.
You wake up in the morning, you think you're in Regina, but you're actually in Moose Jaw. Isn't that true?
Absolutely. I've been on stage, I can't tell you, more than once where I'll be like, how's it going, Seattle? And they're like, you're in Portland. And I'm like, sorry. I guess that's tomorrow.
I saw Holly Johnson do that at the music hall. He said, "Thank you, Montreal," but he was really in Toronto.
It happens.
The solo album, I have to tell you, your read of Leonard Cohen's "I'm a Man" is unbelievable.
Thank you.
It makes those words come alive like no other artist has ever been able to do.
Oh, wow, that's a huge compliment. I love Leonard. So.
But I wonder if there's more reasons than, I wonder if the song title is deeper to you than it would be to a guy.
Well, being a guy, just being a trans guy, I think I definitely took on that sort of persona of, sort of like being more uber masculine. And the lyrics are very much like, about that. It's about living up to a standard of being like the romantic, who will take any woman and will fight for her. Like, I'll be a boxer, be a doctor, like all the lyrics. And that's sort of what Leonard is too, right? He's a ladies' man, and I love that song because of that. And I think it also plays into, of course, gender play and all that stuff. And I think a lot of my fans took it that way as well, especially young trans guys who love that song. Yeah.
May we talk about Caitlin a moment?
Of course. Oh my God, you can talk about anything.
How do you feel about all that? I mean, you did a transition very quietly, by comparison. You were professional throughout the entire experience. How do you feel about Caitlyn Jenner?
Well, I think the reason I did it quietly is because I didn't have the past that Caitlyn had, right? And I think that I wasn't, an Olympic gold medalist. I wasn't on a reality TV show. And so I think with Caitlyn, she didn't really have a choice to do it quietly. People are watching her. And I also think that people took ownership of her body because she did sort of display this, what's the most masculine you could be? You could be an athlete who won a gold medal. That's pretty masculine, right? And I think that when you come from a position like that, where there's ownership of what you've done and your body, people are automatically going to take issue with what you're doing to your body, even though it's none of their business. I applaud what she's done. I think it's fantastic. I think it's unbelievably brave because of where she does come from. I also think that, and this is not her fault, this is the media's fault, I think it's pretty sad that it had to take a person who identified as male, white, and rich for humanity to be like, oh look, there's trans people out there. It didn't take all like these poor like women of color who are getting murdered, trans women who are getting murdered, for people to be like, this is an issue, let's pay attention to it. So there comes that sort of like bittersweet feeling of somebody who's been privileged to get the attention that other people should have been getting in the first place, but that has nothing to do with Caitlyn. That has to do with media. But yeah, I think she's wonderful. I don't know her as a person, obviously, but I think it's great.
At the same time, however, you have Bill Amesbury, who transitioned, 20, 30 years ago.
Mm-hmm. I'm not sure I know who that is.
Oh, Bill Amesbury had a hit record called Virginia. Bill also wrote a great song called "A Thrill's a Thrill" that Long John Baldry recorded.
Is this, was it from male to female?
Bill is now Barbara.
Oh, okay.
And a friend of mine.
Okay.
And she's very comfortable, but I think, quite frankly, I had never heard of this situation until Bill made his transition. And he's quite successful. He now lives in the U.S., and He has musicals, and he gets involved. He's a very, 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 very fine writer and a fine musician. I wonder if the Caitlin exploded only because it was time.
There's that as well. Absolutely. I think that there's been a surge, of people coming out, and people have really started paying more attention to it. Laverne Cox being on Orange is the New Black, that was a huge thing. I mean, she was on the cover of Time magazine, which is, that's a major thing, So yeah, I think that there is time, and there is a time for this to happen. I mean, I also think that, and this is something that I have to be very careful in how I put this, because I could get in a lot of trouble for saying this, but it goes back to what I was saying before. There is this idea, I think, in the media and in people's minds, that apparently being transgender is only a male to female thing. So people who are born female and then transition to male, it's apparently not that big of a deal. It's not something that society should pay that much attention to. And I have a feeling that it has something to do with, they think that, well, you're gaining privilege, so why is that a big deal? But here we have somebody who's like taking away all their privilege of being like male. So all of a sudden it's like, revered as something more courageous or brave, or I guess more easily exploited. I'm not sure. So I always wonder, because yeah, I've seen a lot of people come out before Caitlin who never got the attention that they should have probably gotten. Yeah.
Well, I do believe there are times for things to happen. I do believe that things happen as they're supposed to. Yeah. Sometimes the supposed to part takes a long time to get there. Now, what are you going to do in the future? I know you're still playing gigs. I know you took a year off, and I understand why you took a year off. I totally understand that that's a necessity sometimes. Yeah. The creative juices need a little time off.
Absolutely. Yeah. I found that with taking time off, I actually was going through a huge writing block, and having taken the time off has really, really helped me.
Are you starting to write again?
I am, and very, very differently. And
yes?
This is the thing about the kind of artist I am. I went from writing something like Snake House, the album that you have, which is very rock, edgy, and then Dirty King, the same, and then I came out, my last album, which is Black Tie Elevator, is like a soul record, is like a soul rock record. And now I'm just writing whatever I feel. Yeah. And I like doing that. And what I like the most is that I don't have to be sort of like part of the music industry in a label way, so I don't feel that pressure anymore of having to dedicate myself to a genre,
But don't you think this is the time for independence?
Absolutely.
This is when independents finally can get through the maze.
Absolutely.
And be realized and recognized for their talent.
Yeah, because we can. I mean, the internet has created that space for us, right?
It also opened up the box, Pandora's box, if you will, where genre used to mean about 3 things, and that was all. Now it means 30.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, I know. I can't keep up.
So when can we expect a new CD?
I'm not sure. Like I said, I don't want to put pressure on myself, but I just started writing again, so I'm hoping in about a year I'll have a good collection of, songs to pick through, because, I always say, a good album isn't just about all the songs you wrote, it's about picking the best ones you wrote, right?
Well, I can tell you, I know from my emails and the requests and all the rest of it, you have a lot of fans. They're waiting for another album.
Well, I'm glad.
So hurry.
I'll do my best.
Thank you so much.
No problem, my friend.
It's a pleasure to know you, and it's a pleasure to have you with us here. Lucas is wonderful, isn't he?
Stone cold, don't you know you are my heartache? And I go fooling around and chasing old mistakes. You'll be screaming out for more when I'm halfway out the door someday. Give me till the count of 4, 'cause I know you wanna hear me say. And I go,
touch the lips that you'll be kissing.